So that wasn't my intention. And I wasn't aware of it. See, and I know, yeah, I don't mean for it to come across that way at all. Yeah. How do I do this? See, I just finished a video at the time I'm reading comments on these guys and these guys not making the playoffs. And I believe Tampa's going back next year. No reason to believe they won't, because Stamkos should be healthy. Islanders, bit more touch and go, but I think with Doug Weight there from the start of the year, I think they can do it. My statement on Lindy Ruff and calling it isn't to be a know-it-all. I don't mean to come across that way. I think it's just when you see the season unfold, and I'm kind of surprised when I'm right. And before this channel started, which was, a year ago, I've always been a guy who just discusses hockey with people. And there was never any follow-up on a lot of it. And now with a channel, I can go, hey, I got that right. Really? So there's some of that. And in the case, okay, look, let's say Tampa. So Tampa misses the playoffs. What are you doing? No, don't touch. No, I forgot you were in here and you cause all kinds of shit. So in the case of Tampa at the time, they're down and out, and I said they've got an easier schedule, so I think they have the best chance of getting the last spot. They didn't. It was close. So again, I don't mean to come across as that. And it's not me. I don't. Just this year's been weird, because I've been able to watch things and go, oh, that's weird, because that turned out. And it goes back to, there's probably some defensiveness that gets in there, because I have had a lot of instances over the last year where I've had to fight for this, it seems. Like, there are channels I subscribe to, and when I'll talk about what I'm going to discuss next, or where I telegraph what's going on, and then I look and I go, oh, they just did videos on exactly what I'm going to talk about. Or the same people pick at me. And it's like, okay, well, all right. So when you feel sort of vindicated, and there's bad instances of vindicated too. There's American warships going to the Korean Peninsula. I really don't want to be vindicated. I had a dream 2 months ago that had me wake up in a cold sweat. I had a dream that I was out with Yvonne and the kids, and we were up on a hillside looking down on the Fraser Valley, and I saw missiles in the air going over our heads in that direction, which is north. I'm like, what? And so we found a TV at a diner or whatever it was, and there was President Trump saying, I'm doing what I have to do. And it was that he felt so disrespected as the president, and like he needed the validation that he was president. He was willing to do anything for it, including nuclear war. Woke up in a cold sweat. I've been watching the news since then. I'm nervous. Just certain things I hear him say. When I'm watching, I'm like, oh, he's upset that people don't take him seriously. How far is he going to go? How far is he going to go? So yeah, I don't like my intuition, and there's some intuition there. And certainly there are times where I'm very wrong. Absolutely. The other thing too is that I don't watch my own videos. I sit here, I talk, I yap, and then I post. And it's a style that's allowed my channel to grow. But there were a lot of likes on that comment right away, and I was like, oh, shit. Because I don't want to come across as a know-it-all. I don't. Lindy Ruff being fired, it's a matter of I've followed the Stars long enough to know that they're not always hockey decisions, they're reactionary decisions. And it's not. It's not that Lindy Ruff's a bad coach. So, you know, for me to make the call a month and a half ago and say Tampa's got the best schedule, it was just looking at the schedule. When the Islanders appeared to turn things around under Doug Weight, I looked and went, this team's dangerous. So it's kind of, you know, and I look at Tampa, I look at the Islanders, and I see teams that should have made the playoffs, ideally would have made the playoffs. Tampa, it was injuries. The Stamkos injury, which I thought they'd breeze through because they did last year. And just this year, something was different. I think last year Bishop really stood on his head, and this year he didn't have that kind of season. And they just couldn't overcome their goaltending not being spectacular every night. Vasilevsky was playing better by the end of the season. Vasilevsky's a starting goaltender. He'll be the starter next year and for the foreseeable future. But that hurt him. And for the Islanders, it was just, I think they probably waited too long to get rid of Jack Capuano. And by the time Weight took over, there was just too much ground to make up. Making up ground in the NHL is very difficult because of the number of three-point games. But again, and that's, you know, that's something I've discussed ad nauseum, and, you know, I'm going to take a look at some things over the coming days. My plan is to, you know, I do intend on doing 30 reports on 30 teams. Eventually it'll be 31. I'm very excited about Vegas coming in. That's going to be great. Just having a brand new team. There's no feeling like having a brand new team in a blank canvas. That's so much fun. But again, I don't discuss these things to come across as a know-it-all. I don't discuss these things to be right. I'd much rather discuss these things from a point of view of, wow, the Canucks overachieved and made the playoffs. I was wrong. The Stars managed to find a starting goaltender in the minors who has replaced Lehtinen. They waived Niemi, and the Stars are going to the playoffs, and everything's right in Dallas. I would much prefer to be watching a Stanley Cup final between Vancouver and Boston again, where they get along. Or a Stanley Cup final between Dallas and Boston, where hopefully they get along. I don't think so, though. It would be a matter of who would hit the first cheap shot, Antoine Roussel or Brad Marchand, and you got even odds on that. So, if you're an Islanders fan, hopefully they keep their coach, and they keep their heads about them, and they don't do anything too rash. I think they need to fix the goaltending. I'd get rid of Halak. I'd get rid of Berube or Greiss. If they can find a really good starter, if they could somehow, whether it's Marc-Andre Fleury ends up in Vegas and gets moved to the Islanders, if they could do something like that where Vegas grabs a goaltender and the Islanders make a move to take that goaltender in a trade, I think if the Islanders know who their starter is from the very beginning of the season in October, and they ride that starter and his backup through to April, I think we're looking at a different result right now. And I think both Boston and Toronto benefited from teams behind them not being able to get over that hump. Carolina tried, but Carolina just had too much ground to make up, and then they just ran out of steam. Carolina was way too far back when they started that run, and they still got close. So it was fun, but again, there's been a trend recently where, yeah, I've said I called it. That's just because the season's over and things have fallen. It's like I feel like I sort of figured there'd be a 4.2 earthquake in terms of the standings, and there was a 7.6. While other people may have been calling for a small shift, maybe a 1.2 or a 1.5, so I can say, well, it was closer to what I would have said, but I didn't expect this. I would never have picked Toronto to make the playoffs this year. That's crazy. And they did it. So, again, I apologize. I'm going to definitely censor that out. You're not going to hear it for a while. I'm going to try to censor it out altogether. Because I had no idea. Again, I just make these things and post them. So, I'd intended for this to be a postmortem for Tampa and the Islanders. I guess the best thing I could say to Tampa and the Islanders is I think both of them have 1 year away from the playoffs. The East was a weird conference this year. I mean, Montreal didn't make it last year. Ottawa didn't make it last year. Toronto didn't make it last year. Columbus didn't make it last year. Boston didn't make it last year. So Pittsburgh, Washington, and the Rangers are the only teams that survived from last year's playoff matchups. In the West, yeah, nothing changes in the Central other than the matchups. And Calgary and the Oilers are the only teams that got in that didn't last year in the West. So the East is in flux. And these two organizations are a big part of the reason why. But it's going to get easier. It's going to get better. So, anyways, again, I apologize. That's not me. You know, it's, as I said, there's a lot of things that add up to it. Yeah, there's comments that get posted that really kind of make me go, really? Really? So, you know, those probably stick in my mind more than they should, and I try to make sure they don't, but I'm human. And these, you know, it's part of the game, part of the thing about being human. So, you know, I'll work on it. It's one of those things I'm working on. So, if I've learned anything over the last 44 years I've been on this planet, it's that I tend to make mistakes, and it's a matter of whether you learn from them or you don't. I will also say this, you know, I spent a lot of last night looking at microphones and cameras, and anybody I've talked to who knows me say your videos are of good quality. They're good. But I think a lot of those people have been, you know, watching my videos since 3 years ago, and the videos I was posting 3 years ago when it was just a personal channel, it wasn't even, you know, about sports or hockey. They were really poorly lit, really poorly thought out, far too long-winded, and angry. Very, very angry. I was a very angry man 3 years ago. So things have changed quite a bit. And I'm still in the process of going through these changes. And I'm definitely putting a lot more pressure on myself when it comes to these videos and it comes to this channel. I'll let you guys know that too. I'm putting a ton of pressure on myself. Tons. And Yvonne has been great, and she's helping me with it, and she's coming up with ideas like I am, and, you know, it's great to have somebody at my side for that. And at the same time, you know, there's days where I'm like, oh, I need a break, but I don't take it. So again, that's probably, it all adds up, and it ends up with me probably saying the same thing in videos, not realizing I just said that. So again, I apologize. I'm working on it. And if you're just browsing your way through, again, hit like and subscribe. I don't claim to be Nostradamus or anything. It's fun when you get something right like that, but I don't gamble because I'm not consistently right about anything. So I stay away from gambling. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'm gonna watch. There's a lot of hockey going on today. I'll watch as much of it as I can. and then we'll go over some stuff once we know for sure who's meeting who in the playoffs. I was disturbed to see that there's 10 teams currently that have 100 points, and we could have as many as 12 by the end of today. That's ridiculous. It's too many. That's crazy. But that's for another video for another time. For now, I'm done. I want to give a time on when I'll do my next video, but I'll figure it out. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you all again soon.